So the reason they include the Bill of Rights is so they can get the Constitution ratified. And the reason is they need that affirmation piece. People need to see it in writing. Just like people need to hear I love you. People need to hear that they look nice today. They need to see in writing what your government is not going to do to overstep their bounds. So the Bill of Rights becomes the cornerstone of American government. And it is essentially what separates us from everyone in the world at that time, and even today from countries throughout the world. So let's talk about these amendments. First of all, what's that definition mean, to amend? To fix. We're going to make amends. So you're telling me that they roll out a document and immediately they fix it 10 times? Yep. Part of the genius of the Constitution is that it's flexible, that it's fixable. You're telling me that they fixed it 10 times? Is that all the times that has it been fixed since? 17 more times. Can you think of anything that it fixed since? Some big stuff. Anything?
Women's right to vote.
Women's right to vote. Ending slavery. What else? Universal male suffrage. Heck, they tried to fix alcohol and then that screwed up and it didn't work and they had to pass an amendment to get rid of an amendment, the 18th and 21st. Prohibition and the repeal of prohibition. Did you know that? The last amendment was about congressional pay raises and stuff like that in 1991. So we haven't amended the Constitution in what, 30 years? It's a tough process. It takes 2/3 of a vote from the House and the Senate plus 3/4 of the state legislatures to amend. The framers didn't make it easy, but they did make it possible. And it has proven to stand the test of time. But the first 10, written predominantly by Madison, are called the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments. So let's go through them right now. Obviously, one of them is more significant, relevant than the other 9. Guess which one? The first. Why? Because it really is the cornerstone of this American experiment. Freedom of speech is powerful. I think I said this last week, but even if I didn't, I'll tell you a story. So when I was young, Auburn, New York, I was born and raised, and there was this neo-Nazi skinhead group of hate that had planned a peaceful assembly where they were going to march downtown. If you have family from Auburn, ask them about this. This happened like 30, 35 years ago, okay? And I said to my dad, why are we letting them come here and do this? Why are we letting them do this? Why don't we just stop them? And my dad said, because he was smart with stuff like this, and he said a quote, he said, I disagree with the words you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say them. And that sort of resonated with me because it is something that separates us from other parts of the world, even today. Free speech is valuable and important. And I want you to think of it this way, because this might bring it home and make you understand it a little bit better. Anybody in here that, and this is not a show of hands, and I certainly don't want to talk politics. Anybody in here that is either very passionately against Biden or very passionately was against Trump? So I don't care what side that you're on. I want you to think about this for a second. Do you want the person that you don't like of those two names creating policy of who can and can't peacefully assemble? So it might sound like a good idea if it's a group that you hate and despise, but do you want the person deciding that maybe your idea isn't worthy of being able to peacefully assemble? So let me just make that more practical. You hate Trump. He makes you feel horrible. You hated him so much, just the sight of him made you sick. And do you want Trump to decide as a government who can assemble? Or do you think he would target your movement? Conversely, you hate Biden. Everything he does makes you sick. You share memes. You write, "Let's go, Brandon." You're really angry at Joe Biden. But do you want to give Biden that stick to be able to shut down your protest? I don't think you do. And another thing, you know, the KKK was founded, the Klan, I don't know, we're going to learn about them, underground in Pulaski, Tennessee. Do you know why they were founded? They were founded because during Reconstruction, good-intentioned Northerners in the U.S. military made sure that nothing was out in the open. So the Klan went underground with their hate. Now what am I saying? If this horrible group wants to come through Auburn and cause a ruckus, I want to see who these people are. I want to know who these people that think like that are. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because just because they don't assemble downtown doesn't mean their hate's not the same. I'd rather know who they are and use it as a teachable moment. Because you just can't wave a wand and make hate disappear. And maybe if hate's out in the open, we can say that's hate. That's bad. And maybe we can teach a younger generation what hate is. So I find the First Amendment to be powerful. Now where is free speech restricted? Well, the Constitution says during wartime free speech is restricted. Did you know that? If we're at war, then you can't like incite burning draft cards. We'll learn that when we talk about Schenck versus the U.S. in World War I in 1919. And you can't shout fire during our musical in a crowded auditorium if there is no fire. And say, oh, I got a right to free speech. No, the court has used that as an example. Do you follow me? And you can't use free speech as a crutch to say something horrible about a classmate. Or to threaten somebody. Or to threaten somebody. Or to wish that, you know, you could do some damage to some famous person. Because that's not like, oh, I have freedom of speech, so I can't. No, you can't. It's not about individual threats. All right? Freedom of speech doesn't protect you if you get in trouble at school. This deals with the law. And it doesn't protect you in the workplace. You know, a good example that I've used before is, what if I just decided that I thought that the Pledge of Allegiance was really horrible, and that I just talked through the whole thing while I took a knee? Because I was like, I'm mad at America. Does the First Amendment protect my right to do that? Well, they protect my right to not get arrested for it, but they don't protect my right to keep my job. Do you see the difference there? Like, the First Amendment exists to protect you from being arrested by your government. They don't necessarily protect me in the workplace from making a stand. If Mr. Froyo or whomever your boss is doesn't like the position you're taking, he's going to talk to you and say, hey, don't do that anymore. You know, you're bringing attention, then you can't do that. You know, so there's a line there. As students, it's tricky. Because you can't, the court said once, you don't check the Constitution in at the front door of school. So you do have rights to express until they infringe upon classroom instruction. Let me talk about that again. Let me say that again. So if you wore a shirt that caused a disruption because of its content, say politically, then you could be asked to change the shirt. You could say, but I have freedom of speech. If I want to say I hate Donald Trump and wear this shirt, that I should be allowed to wear the I hate Donald Trump shirt. Well, yes, but no, because you're sitting in an English class and the two kids next to you love Donald Trump and you've been arguing about it. So the court has basically said that, yes, you can protest as long as it doesn't disrupt the educational process. So free speech is limited in the schoolhouse. But you still have a right to have free speech. It's not limited. You're Americans just like everybody else. What about freedom of the press? What did that used to mean? Solely what? What was the press in 1790? Newspapers. Writing letters to the editor. Now what would it be included? What's the modern press? Do you guys even know what a newspaper is? Have you ever seen a newspaper? I'm only half joking. Have you ever seen it? Does anybody still, family, get a subscription to the newspaper? Anybody still get one to the house in here?
Yeah.
A couple of you are not. I love the newspaper. I grew up on the newspaper like it was a thing for my dad and I. Before he lost his vision, I mean, we were newspaper people. I was a sports page guy. You know, it was the only time you could get that type of information, but I liked the whole newspaper if it was local. And I don't even get the paper anymore. I do pay for the subscription online though. And there's some old timers that yelled at me like, you don't want to hold the paper? I'm like, I don't know, I'm just looking at it on my phone. I mean, I don't need the actual physical paper, but some people feel like they still do. And you do get like coupons and classified. There are other things. The paper's trying to entice you to buy the paper. But freedom of the press now could mean what? That you could call out government where? What's modern press? Social media. Do you think that you could go on Facebook at any time and find criticisms of state or federal government any day that you want from people? Of course you could. From all sides? Yes. Yes, you could. And can they do that? Yeah, they have freedom of the press.
You can get put on Facebook too.
Yeah, if you're threatening.
Oh, you don't have to trust me with my bank account put in there.
That's rough.
Yeah.
What about freedom of religion? Does that mean that you could practice any religion you want? Yep. Well, that's in response to a world with state-sponsored religions. What's a state-sponsored religion, Matt? What's a state-sponsored religion? I don't need an example. I mean, what's that mean?
I don't know.
What's it mean, Spencer?
A religion
Tell
that
me.
doesn't have to pay taxes.
Yeah, well, and it's also a religion that you have to be a part of. Why do you think they included freedom of religion? They didn't want to be a country where they restricted your religion or lack thereof. Freedom of assembly, freedom to petition. You got Nick on here right now. Nick has the constitutional right to petition his government, which is his school. He has that constitutional right. He is protected by the Constitution that he can pass a petition and air grievances without the recourse of being arrested for it. Freedom of speech, press, expression, assembly, religion. That's an acronym, SPEAR. Yes, Nick?
So, like, about that free speech, like, they won't let the teachers sign that paper because you guys could get fired if you sign the paper and help our petition. You guys will get in trouble for helping the students. Like, how does that help?
Well, I told you the First Amendment doesn't protect the workplace. No one would get arrested,
Get fired.
but that's two different things. That's two different things. But good. I'm glad you're listening. Any questions about the First Amendment? I always use you know what an acronym is? When letters form a word, like scuba is self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Scuba, S-C-U-B-A. SPEAR, speech, press, expression, assembly, religion. Easy way to remember the First Amendment. SPEAR. Yes?
Why can't teachers sign petitions? Is there a specific reason?
I don't know. It just doesn't feel like good politics for a teacher to get involved with any issue. Because I check my opinions in at the schoolhouse door. But good questions. Just don't want to persuade kids one way or the other. Does that make sense? Even if I have a strong opinion, I don't want to. I don't want to be the reason as an authority figure in the building to, like, teachers don't give up like political leanings and stuff like that.
Cause a problem with the parents.
Yeah, there's just no reason for it. It's important that I show all sides to everything.
Yes.
Do you understand what I mean? So often in law rights, I'll play devil's advocate, even if I disagree and I agree with the kid. I want to pick the other side because I think that as an educator, that's really important. Because otherwise, teachers kind of persuade kids with their opinions. You know, some kids that don't know any better only hear one side, and that's not fair either. So even with something like that, I don't want to take a position on that. I won't take a position on anything unless it's like a health and safety issue. Obviously, like I have an opinion on heroin, you know, and stuff like that. There are things I have an opinion on, but other than that, my opinions are not. I'd rather foster an environment where you feel free and open to share your opinions without recourse. A tolerant building. Second Amendment. You know, I'm going to get home today and my wife and kids are going to know that I taught you this today. Because every year I write a 2 on my bare arm. If you want a marker, you can as well. And your parents can ask you, why do you have a 2 on your right arm? Right, so I wrote, 2 bare arms. Now you'll know the Second Amendment just by writing a 2 on your arm. Riley, I know you want to write a 2 on your right arm. You can tell your parents. You can pass that around. right to bear arms. Let's read the Second Amendment. Let's flip over to that. I want you to read that. Go to 3.9 and read the Second Amendment to me. There's an interesting part of that. First of all, it says a well-regulated militia. But the second one is, I don't know what you thought, but did you think, make sure you put it on your right arm, did you think the Second Amendment was like the right to hunt? What's the real purpose or motivator of the framers for the Second Amendment? Anyone know?
The right to life.
It's
Against what?
Your own government.
Your own government. It says it in words. Read it to me, Riley Crawford. Please.
a well-regulated militia.
Listen to her.
Being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Necessary to the security of a free state. Weapons to be able to stand up or man. You know, I heard a woman speak. Condoleezza Rice was her name. She was a cabinet member in the Bush administration, an African-American woman, and she had said how, and I never thought about it from this perspective, how important the Second Amendment was in civil rights South, segregated South during Jim Crow. You know what I'm talking about? Before, like, they integrated schools. Because she said that essentially she implied that some of the Southern police forces in towns couldn't be trusted, and it was only like having a weapon in the house that African Americans felt safe from lynchings and all the other things that happen in these places. So I never looked at it from that perspective about the power of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment's controversial now. I'm not going to lie to you. There's two sides that are really smart and dug in. It's a controversial topic because it's about where we draw the line. Like a lot of things in politics, where we draw the line. Don't be afraid, Rayton. You can write the 2 on your right arm.
I thought we were supposed to write 2 bear arms.
No, just the number 2, and then you'll remember.
I wrote 2 bear arms.
Nick,
That's
that's
fine.
your wrong arm.
Please tell me this.
Listen. The Third Amendment gives you the right of protection of what? Quartering troops during peacetime. Quartering troops during peacetime.
Oh yeah, this didn't make that a little.
Remember the quartering acts bother them? So you're telling me that if the New York State Police show up at your door, that you don't have to let them like take over your house?
No, you have to. No,
If they
no,
have,
warrant.
if they have a
Nick,
warrant.
no.
Yeah, they can't just take your house during peacetime. So wait, if we're at war and Al Qaeda's rolling down Route 5, well then the world rules are different. Let's hope that
Can't
wrong.
the DEC just know not to walk into your house if they have any suspicion?
That's a forest ranger, not
Wait,
regular
wait.
DC.
Well, there's such thing called open door now.
Okay, Fourth Amendment.
I'll get that.
Now, when I teach in-person summer school, sadly, the Fourth Amendment perks kids up. I think that sadly through the years, the kids that fail when I teach the regular 11, the kids that fail have a higher likelihood of using drugs. And the Fourth Amendment always is something that perks them up because it deals with unreasonable searches and seizures. What does that mean? Let me ask you a question. I'll ask Caspian. Caspian, you're driving your car, cops pull you over. Okay, you're pulled over on Hamilton. Cop comes up to your window, license and registration, and then the cop says, let me look in your trunk. What is your answer? You have 3 choices.
I don't have to.
Depends on what's in there.
Well, that's the wrong, listen. So, if nothing is in your trunk that would incriminate you for any reason, you to be like, sure, okay.
Weird question.
But you also could just say no, which would really red flag you, like, why is this kid not letting us open the trunk? They're probably gonna put you on surveillance, maybe. But one good answer would be, ready for your answer? If you wanna be, I would be very polite. You just leave it. I'd be very polite and I would say, my 11th grade history and government teacher told me that I could evoke my Fourth Amendment privilege right now, so I'm going to say no, just on principle, officer.
I'd laugh at them and
I'd be like, nah, I don't have to.
What?
Got a warrant for it.
Maybe, it happens. There's a very famous case where the police came to talk to a woman about something separate, snooped around her living room, found drugs under her couch, and that was not legal. They did not find the drugs legally because they snooped around. This is tricky. You know, think about it like they can't just take your stuff without a warrant. What's a warrant, Matt? Unless they have probable
It's
cause.
not like a paper that like.
Paper signed by a judge.
By a judge to say that they can like search or take.
Yeah, then your property can be searched. The Fourth Amendment protects you against the government just coming in and doing things. Now, you're going to ask a question, because I had a friend that worked on a drug task force, and they just kicked down doors and ransacked places. And you're like, well, doesn't the Fourth Amendment protect them? No, because they have probable cause. They have probable cause. You know, in school, the SROs couldn't come in here and take every bag and put them all in the hall and dump them all. Unless somebody went down there and said, I don't know who, but somebody in this building has X in their bag. Somebody in this building has heroin in their bag. Somebody in this building has a weapon in their bag. But I don't know who.
Didn't they bring like dogs in?
Yeah, they could use dogs, and that would be probable cause. We end up finding like Dayquil. We got a kid in trouble for Dayquil.
He gets in trouble. Wait, you get in trouble for
Really nice girl got ISS for Dayquil in 2015.
Really?
What about
Wait, we can get in trouble for that?
Can't have it, yeah, you get ISS. That's the limit of Hello?
Wait, can we really get in trouble for having like over-the-counter stuff? in
Absolutely, absolutely.
Why?
It's illegal.
You need a doctor, like, you need like doctor.
Needs to be distributed in the nurse's office.
Isn't it
That's
like
stupid.
overdose
Even like a-
grounds is an accountability issue?
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely. But you're minors too.
You can have
Even like a
coffee outside.
driver?
Cough drops are funny. We suspended a kid for cough drops here and then realized that either the law changed or we were wrong. Cough drops are okay. I mean, depending on what's in them, but
Oh my gosh.
regular over-the-counter
How
cough
did
drops
you
are
make it
okay.
up to the kid?
But then,
They
what
better
about,
have
like-
said sorry.
But then, like, what are they gonna do?
There
with
was a
period
time where you
medication?
couldn't, but I think they're okay.
But then, Cora, like, what are they gonna do about like period medication?
That's
Are
scary.
they gonna yell at us for that?
Nice about it.
Okay, Fifth Amendment has multiple parts. I need you to pay attention. The most famous part, if you ever watched a movie or watched a show and heard someone say, I plead the Fifth,
Me too.
or I'm gonna,
You don't have to talk.
what's that mean, Matt?
You don't have to talk.
You don't have to incriminate yourself. Can you still get in trouble? Yeah, but you don't have to testify against yourself. You ready to get some of the best legal advice that I've ever given you?
Yeah.
You ready for this? At some point, statistically, someone in this class is going to be arrested. Someone is going to be accused of a crime. And I don't care if you're guilty or innocent. And it might happen at school. Shh. You might get called down to the office. I'm not talking about getting suspended from school because they can do what they want. But if they bring the county sheriffs in here or the state police and you're getting questioned, I'm going to give you some really great advice. You ready? You know what you're going to say if it's about you? Not about your friends, because you have to talk.
I plead
If
the
it's
fifth.
about you, you know what you're going to say?
I
I don't feel comfortable right now without an attorney present or without my lawyer.
Parents?
With all due respect, I'm telling you, say with all due respect, I'm not saying to not be compliant and be polite. There's no reason to not be polite with law enforcement, with a judge, you know, catch more flies with honey. But what I am saying is, listen to me. Listen to me. There's no reason for you to talk because those people are trained and you really need to talk to an attorney first. Family lawyer, whatever, if you're ever in trouble. And if your friend's in trouble and they're getting brought in, remind them of that. Say, hey, don't talk until you've got a lawyer present. That's really good advice I'm giving you. That right now means nothing, but it's going to mean something at some point for someone. Don't be rude about it. You're not doing yourself any favors. But I would respectfully say, you know, I'm going to use my Fifth Amendment right. I'm not in a position now. I'm shook up right now. I don't really want to talk until, I don't care if you're innocent or guilty. I think it's the same for both. Just say I'm not comfortable right now. Because you know the moment you're getting arrested, you're pretty shook anyway. So you're not in the best frame of mind to talk. You're either fired up because you're innocent or you're upset because you got caught. Yes.
My dad tells me to say that to teachers when they, like, about him. I don't feel comfortable without my dad here.
It depends on certain scenarios. You know, that really only protects you with legal things like getting arrested, but you know, that isn't a bad thing to say. As a parent, I don't blame him for saying that to you. You know, if it's something that, because anything that we say is public record, I wouldn't talk to a kid and make them feel, I would want the parent to be in on if there was a problem. So I understand. As a
Some
parent,
teachers are scary.
as a parent, I get that. Other parts of the Fifth Amendment. One of them is double jeopardy. If you want to write that on the side, I'm sort of summing these up for you. What's double jeopardy mean?
Two jeopardies.
You can't get tried
Twice.
for the same crime twice if you're found innocent the first time. So wait, why do we have that? Somebody could murder, get away with it, and then tell everyone, like, sucks to be you, I did it. Theoretically, yes. The reason is we don't want to drag somebody through the court system for the rest of their lives, trying over and over again. The government gets one shot with a jury of your peers.
But
Yes.
what if they're innocent and they get tried guilty?
Well, then they can appeal. That's a whole different thing. Yes.
But how are cases like able to be reopened?
Because they were never tried. There was never a verdict. If there's new evidence or compelling evidence, then that would change things. New crime, anything like that. Good question. I'll tell you a story. The most high-profile court case of my lifetime was this guy, O.J. Simpson, who was a Hall of Fame football player that played for the Buffalo Bills not too far away. And after he retired, okay, he became a celebrity. He did Hertz rental car commercials. He was in the Naked Gun movies, which were really funny comedies of the late 80s and early 90s. He was the sideline reporter for Monday Night Football. He was really a beloved, well-known person. And one night, his wife, who he was sort of separated with, and a waiter from a restaurant, were found brutally murdered in Brentwood, California, at his house. And as the case unraveled, it became really high profile. There was a slow-speed chase in a white Bronco. It really captured American imaginations. And, you know, I was really into it. And he was guilty. He was guilty. Without a doubt, guilty. And found guilty in civil court. But in the criminal court, he had a high-priced team of attorneys, and he got off.
BS.
Now, here's what's crazy. And there's a really good documentary, if you want, that I watched on Netflix like last year, The People versus O.J. Simpson, I think. So good. If you want to learn more about this. Here's the thing. Years later, he was going to make a, ready for this? He was going to do a pay-per-view. Do you know what pay-per-view is? Like when you rent like a boxing match? $49.95. He was going to say, if I did do it. And he was going to go through how the murders would have happened if he actually did it. Which would have basically been him telling the story that everyone wanted to hear about how he killed, brutally killed, almost cut her head off, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. And you know why he didn't do it? Because he lost the civil suit and he realized that all those proceeds would go to the Goldman family, that he wouldn't get the money. He was going to do it for the money. Because he could admit now that, hey, yeah, I did it. Sucks to suck, but yeah, because he can.
Wait, why did he do that?
What?
Why did he do it?
Enraged, she was with another man.
Oh.
Wouldn't be a good look for them at the time.
Wait,
Because he
so
was a slug.
he did it, but he didn't go to
What did they
jail.
say?
No.
But they know he did it.
Well, I mean,
He hasn't admitted it, but they know that he
the
did it.
court found him innocent, so do we really know he did it? I mean, I'm telling you my opinion.
I think he did it.
Watch the documentary, The People versus O.J. Simpson. It's excellent.
I think so.
Excellent. Really worth the watch. The other part of the Fifth Amendment is eminent domain. That means the federal government can't take your property without giving you compensation. Which means they can take your property if they compensate you. Which means if they want to build a highway and it's through your yard, then they will. They'll just have to pay you assessed value plus. Sixth Amendment. What's the Sixth Amendment? What's the crux of it? Look at it. There's one. It says the right to what? Speedy public trial. Why a speedy trial? Because they don't want to make you sit in jail waiting for trial for 10 years. That's unfair.
Although it does happen.
I know, they try to not, it has to be reasonable. And that'll help you get off the hook, Spencer, if it does. Because that technicality will save you, theoretically. Why a public trial? What's the alternative? Think Deep South again. You know what they would have done to African Americans on trial if they could have done it private in 1930? Right? Yeah.
They would have fired like their family and friends to make them test the way they wanted them to test, whether they'd be guilty or innocent.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. They would do it all behind closed doors. And we want, democracy works better in public. Remember that. Democracy works better in the open. Seventh Amendment. A trial by jury is really the heart of that. What's that mean? A group of people
Decide your fate.
decide your fate, not just a judge. You have that option. I would say I would pick the trial by jury every time. You only need to convince 1 out of 12. The judge is just one. It has to be a unanimous verdict. So if you're on trial, obviously picking trial by jury is the smartest move. Eighth Amendment. 2 parts. One is you can't have excessive bail. You can circle the word bail. Do you know what is bail? My law rights kids know. What is bail?
Money to get
It's
out.
money that's held that you get back as collateral. It's like giving your shoe to a teacher when you borrow a pen, so that you don't escape. The bail has to fit the crime. So if we arrest Nick Coleman on shoplifting charges and I make bail $100,000, does that fit the crime?
No.
No, it's excessive. The other part of the Eighth Amendment is, you ready for this? Cruel and unusual punishment, which means the government can't cut your hand off because you steal. Or because you rape. Even if that sounds good.
We should be allowed.
Oh my gosh, yeah, my house.
I usually-
And the lady only got like grand larceny. No, she got just larceny because she sold it at a pawn shop, so they like only could credit it for like what she did in the pawn shop, not the actual worth of jewelry. And then she didn't even have to go to jail because she had kids, so she was just on a house arrest.
I believe
And
it.
now she's supposed to pay us back, but she can't pay us back because she doesn't have a job.
Restitution.
Because she knows that she has a job, and she's gonna have to pay us back every
Ralph.
paycheck.
Here's the thing, cruel and unusual punishment, like we can't draw on quarter like they did in Europe. Right? Like executions even have to be done in a humane way. Cruel and unusual punishment, I make an Eighth Amendment.